Welcome to the podcast. We are speaking with Kat Jones, the CEO and founder of Byway Travel. That's a new British operator specializing in no-fly holidays. New, you may think that's crazy, right? Setting up a travel company in the middle of a pandemic. Actually, it's brilliant because no one wants to take a plane at the moment. Staycations are really what people are thinking about. Perhaps taking a train to France, to Italy. This is the absolute best moment for this type of travel. And that's what Kat is accommodating. So it was really great to have her as a guest on the podcast. You can find all the links in the show notes on her website. That's byway.travel. On our website, that is podcasts.earth. Without further ado, here's the podcast with Kat Jones. First of all, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I'm speaking with Kat Jones from Byway. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm very well as well, except for the lockdown. Hey, we're still in a lockdown, which seems to be going
We
on and
are.
on and on. So I don't know, but you're an operator specializing in no-fly holidays, which really appeals to me because I've been slow traveling for 4 years in a row when I was young. I loved it,
Good for you.
and yeah, I really, you experience the journey, and sometimes traveling is about really a journey, not really destinations. If you go on a holiday and you just want to be on the beach, yeah, that's just going on, on a holiday. But
Mhm.
I really like it, but it seems to be a difficult moment really to start. Start. You started in March, I believe.
It does get me laughed at a lot, the timing of starting Byway.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I've had two great loves in my life. I've
Okay.
had slow travel. I've never owned a car. So like you, the joy of the journey is a big part of why I love to go away and explore.
Mhm.
And so that's always been a bit of a bee in my bonnet, that actually that is so hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to set up trips like that and do the research around where would you go, and then syncing up timetables and various booking platforms, and it's very fragmented. It's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
So that's been a bee in my bonnet, and then I've spent a lot of time around startups as well,
Okay.
and working in startups and investing in startups and coaching founders. And really,
Ah.
when
Okay.
we went into lockdown in March,
Yeah.
the two worlds kind of collided and
Yeah.
said, look, travel's kind of going into free fall right now.
Yeah.
And if we're going to, if there was ever a time to invest in the future of travel and a more sustainable, travel-based future for travel,
Yeah.
then this is the time to do it. So that was
Absolutely.
essentially, it was the catalyst for me to leave my job and say, now I'm going to found Byway.
So you left your investment startup job
Mhm.
totally and
Yes.
totally into Byway. Amazing, amazing. I think where does the name come from? Byway. Why Byway?
Byway, because we feel like it sums up the types of trips that we offer.
Okay.
So with Byway, we're taking people off the beaten track.
Yeah.
We're not following all of the main roads. We're following the byways.
That's why Byway. Okay.
So it's about so going a little bit under the radar, and finding the places that aren't where all of the crowds are going.
Yeah.
And that's and I think also it's a more interesting journey when you're taking the byways, and that's what we're all about. It's the great places to stop, but the amazing journeys that you get on the way.
Have you done it quite a bit yourself in the past? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, I've never owned a car,
Yeah.
so I've always been
No
I've always
choice.
been traveling by train and boat, and I used to do quite a lot of sailing as well. So
boats as well. Yeah.
Water-based exploring.
So what if people want to go to different continents and obviously no fly holidays? Do they have to take a boat or?
Well, at the moment, we only have trips across the UK and Europe.
Okay.
So yeah, boats and Eurostar are our main routes out of the UK.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a good question about other continents, and I think we may kind of come on to this, but what we're not saying is if you live in the UK, you can never go anywhere else.
Right.
I think what we are saying is, where you can choose a grounded trip, that is a really, really gorgeous, delightful way to travel. And I don't think, people don't try it. It's hard. There are many people who've never tried doing a lot of travel like this. And my bet is if they tried it, they would love it as much as I do, and you clearly do.
Much more.
Well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just wondering, obviously with Brexit and everything, they're talking about Eurostar being more difficult. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so I think we are operating in a landscape of change right now, right?
Definitely.
We all are.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in terms of travel, it means that in a way, I think we're at a slight advantage being a travel business founded in a pandemic.
Why is that?
Versus, well, because I think for some established travel businesses that already know how they're working and that already have a scaled operations and they have partnerships that have minimum commitments in place, it's really hard to adjust to this kind of volatility in the environment. Whereas I think for us, we've only known travel like this, you know, it's always been like this as long as we've been founded.
Exactly.
So our approach to partnerships is much more flexible. And it means, yes, we'll work with Eurostar, but we'll work with the ferry companies as well. And we'll, you know, we will have a few different options that allow us to kind of manage, given what the environment looks like right now, we can kind of manage our trips such that they fit in with how the environment happens to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense too. Of course, if you have a business that's already been operating for years and years and years, you have to adjust immensely for the situation that we're in right now. And that's much more difficult than starting from scratch and starting in the right way, which is what you're doing. And I've seen as well, I've read a few articles, you had some great feedback already, huh?
We have. It's been a real treat. I think since we were very under the radar with our beta in July, we sort of launched a beta as the lockdown lifted.
Okay.
And then we were a little bit more public about launching actually in November and starting to say, you know, on the other side of lockdown, come and book your Byway holiday. And it's gone down a storm. It's been brilliant. Yeah. We've been all over the Guardian and the Independent and the FT and the Telegraph and the Times.
Everywhere, indeed. Yeah. Amazing indeed. Then I see something about you. Obviously, you make the trips, you do all the reservations for your clients, and you say that you do this seamlessly, which might be very difficult with train travel, buses, or is that just my view? It's totally wrong, obviously, but go ahead.
It's not totally wrong. It's really hard. So I think this is exactly the problem that we're trying to solve, which is it is really, really hard to do this yourself. And so definitely when we launched in July, we were just doing all of that manually. So we were doing a whole lot of really hard manual work to sync all of these things and book them all. And then especially with the changing environment, you know, we're a one-click holiday for a customer. You know, they put in their preferences, we generate a holiday, they book it, and then it's one point of refund. You know, it's all package protected. So if something means restrictions say you can't travel, well then they just go, they can't travel, we cancel the holiday, and they get a full refund.
Really? That's amazing.
For us,
that's amazing.
It is.
Yeah. How do you do that, if I may ask? Because, you know, you have companies like Ryanair, they just say, well, you know, the planes are going. You know, they might not be advised to travel, but there's still people that have to go to different places. Our planes are going, we're not going to give you a refund. How does that work for you?
Well, it works because we believe that, you know, I think it's important to us that we're building an ethical business, right? And we're solving a pain point for customers. We're not trying to make that worse. And it's a really difficult environment to plan a holiday in if you don't have the confidence that it can be kind of protected. So we are taking a bit of risk there, where we're working with suppliers, where we kind of get as close as we can on those terms to our suppliers. And actually we prefer to work with local suppliers and independent operators over massive chains. And actually most of our partners are flexible around, well, of course, if we're in lockdown, you're not going to go on holiday.
No.
And therefore, you know, we're all kind of on the same page about us giving customers a refund, and that's all shared. There will be certain instances, for example, with the train companies where there are refund fees that we will just absorb in the case of a cancellation. Okay. So it's mostly absolutely doable. I think the most of the headache is actually in the going to get all of those refunds from all of the different suppliers. So obviously the customer can come to us once, but we have to then sort of coordinate a whole lot of other suppliers. So that's going back to your original question, I think, where in July, we were doing everything 100% manually, and it was full on. But for the customer, it was very easy. And now what we're layering in increasingly is the technology that we're building, which allows us to automate more and more of this stuff, so that actually those things that already appear seamless to a customer will increasingly be more and more seamless to our team, who are actually managing the bookings as well.
So you have a platform in place that's basically growing and expanding and working. Obviously now we're looking at June, July, and like me, you're based in the UK, and they're talking about cancelling the summer holidays already. Hey,
I think they're talking about everything, aren't they? They're just trying to manage everyone's expectations that nothing is certain at all.
Do you get a lot of bookings already, or?
We have. We've got. It's actually one of the things I just popped out in my email to our subscribers last weekend. Was just a kind of a gentle heads up that we have had a lot of bookings for summer and late summer particularly. We also have got a lot of our partners are already full, so especially some of our favourites, they're already quite full with bookings that were held over from last year.
Right.
So there's actually,
So you just change the dates, if I may interrupt, you just change the dates of those bookings already to this year, or how does that?
Some have just been kind of delayed. If it wasn't possible last time, just kind of push it out a year. That was quite common last year. So we've got, I think, a tipping point coming where already there's quite limited availability for some trips this summer. I think we know, staycations at the moment are the place to be. So there's a lot that's kind of already fairly limited. And then obviously what happened last year was the end of lockdown got announced and suddenly everything sold out just like that. So I think we're likely to see something probably quite similar when there's a bit more clarity here.
When there's more vaccinations coming around as well, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah. So can you give me an example? Because you not only do train travel, buses and boats, but you really look at places that are sustainable to stay at as well. How do you measure that? And can you give me an example of such a trip?
Yeah. So I think for us, at the moment, we're still small enough that we know all of these hosts ourselves, so we can get to know the people that we're including in our trips. And there's partly it is a sustainability thing. We want to make sure that we're staying places that are being responsible with their environment. But it's as much about being part of their local community as well. The idea of a Byway holiday is that it does help you to explore somewhere deeply and to understand the region that you're traveling through and see how it connects together. And we feel like that happens much more when you're staying with somebody who's a part of that region and, locally owned places that have got real people hosting them that you can kind of get to know. Often will tend to work better with a Byway trip than kind of an international hotel chain, for example.
That's what you do. You're looking for smaller places.
Yeah, generally smaller family-run, independently run places. Yeah.
Okay. So if I would like to go to Greece, say in June or July or whenever, July probably a lot of people will have a vaccine, so it'll all be good. We're going to travel. How do I do that with you? I just click on the button that says Greece, or is there more to it?
You can do it too. Well, you can't do it at the moment because we don't do Greece.
Okay.
But we'll get there. At the moment, you can go. So you can go around the UK. You can go to France. You can go to Italy. With Byway. So let's say you wanted to go to one of those places. You could do it two ways. So you can either come through. So on the site, we've got a holiday builder, which is kind of our favourite way for people to do it. So we take people through a very simple form that asks them to tell us about the kind of holiday they like, what's important to them, but it's quite visual, image based, so you can just click the images that feel like the sort of holiday you might enjoy, and we'll then take that and generate a trip that's built to those preferences. So we're essentially matching those user preferences to a set of stays and stops on a route that we think actually this user is going to love. This is somebody who's really into history and they're going to really enjoy these castles in this particular part of Scotland, for example. And then we might suggest some of that. And if there's lots of food and drink, then there are some really gorgeous restaurants that we might plan a trip around with incredible views.
You also recommend the restaurants as well. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not booking the restaurants. We're booking all of the travel and the accommodation, but we're giving. Yeah, exactly. So we'll kind of point people in the direction of all of those little bits that we're highlighting as why they would suit that particular trip. So that would be one way you could do it, is just go in, tell our system I'm interested in France and these are my preferences. And we then build a trip, which hopefully you go, oh yes, that's gorgeous. One click, book it, and Byway will sort it all out. The other way you can do it is to go, we've got a kind of destination section on the site where you can just go and browse off-the-shelf trips, essentially, that can then be customized.
Okay, fantastic. So now, obviously, COVID has been here. It has probably affected your business quite a bit as well, but it's all looking good for the future. And they're talking about a lot of new trains coming as well, sleeper trains, like 13 all around Europe. Obviously, some people say, well, that's great. It's romantic. You can walk around. You can eat at the stations. You can step off if you want to. And also, people say it's less efficient. What do you think?
I think that's rubbish. I think what's more efficient than going to sleep in one place and waking up somewhere completely different? I mean, we absolutely love sleeper trains. We do actually a lot of our Scottish trips for customers from the south going up to Scotland. A lot of them are using the Caledonian Sleeper. And it's always a real highlight for those trips and those customers. And I mean, I think it's super efficient. Go to sleep, wake up in the Highlands. And obviously, as you say, the experience is gorgeous, and you waking up somewhere that's just a whole different landscape. And you can get off and stop here and get the train again in an hour and a half if it looks like a nice spot for a walk.
Is it more expensive?
The sleeper train? Yeah, generally.
More expensive than flying?
Oh, well, it's... than flying, I wouldn't. I mean, it depends when you're looking. There's so much volatility in the prices, so it can be cheaper, it can be more expensive, but it's usually more expensive than getting a daytime train, for example, because it's you're staying overnight. But we tend to find with Byway trips as well, we don't have an option for you to book like a reclining seat. So there are kind of budget ways to do sleeper trains, but we would always say you'd have a private cabin in a sleeper to give you your good night's sleep and make sure it's an enjoyable journey.
All right. Anyway, it's a good way of thinking of the future. Anyway, if they're thinking about more trains, that means people are going to fly less, I would say, which is always good, isn't it? Yeah. So then they say really that, what did they say here? I did a podcast last year with Anna Hughes of Flight Free UK. She was also, like you and like me, advocating slow travel. She doesn't really believe in FlixScam, and she doesn't really believe in flight shame either. What's your view on FlixScam?
I agree with Anna. I think it's... I think this is about joyful journeys, that are really, it's gorgeous when you travel through the world and you're not flying over all of the best bits.
I totally agree.
That's the point, right? It's lovely, it's romantic, it's exciting, it's adventurous. And by the way, it's amazing for the planet. And especially you do one of these, invest in trying it, you're going to be hooked, you're going to do more of it, and the planet will benefit from that as you do naturally end up flying less. And I don't think that a flight shame lens on this is a helpful thing.
No.
And I think that what the helpful thing is helping more people realize how gorgeous it is to travel by traveling.
Right? Yeah. Positivity helps much better than being negative about that. That's what I think as well. Totally. I see on your website comparisons between rail and planes, and obviously, we're looking here at CO2. You say something of rail travel, 14 grams per passenger mile. Air travel, a lot more, 20 times more. Yeah. Do those figures, is that about right? Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 20 times, but it largely depends on the length of your trip as well, because there's a big impact on whether it's a domestic flight, for example, versus a long haul flight. Because with the shorter flights, the most carbon intensive parts are the takeoff and the landing. Yeah. So per mile, you're doing worse on a domestic flight or a short haul flight than you would be if you were going to a whole nother continent, for example. Go on.
No, I just remembered. I saw an article of a very short flight somewhere in Scotland, and they were now taking electric planes. Did you read that? That's quite
Yes,
amazing, isn't
yeah,
it?
and there are actually, and this is another reason we would say it's not an anti-flight thing.
No.
I think that there's a world where some of these gorgeous electric planes to a Hebridean island would be something that would be interesting, right, for a byway trip. I think the point is that the jet flights they are problematic for the environment, and we all know that now.
Sure.
And I think that there are increasingly, well, I know that there's tons of research that people have been getting more aware of this for a while, and especially since COVID, a lot of that's been accelerated. People have got in a way, we had a grand experiment, didn't we? Not on purpose, of what happens when all of the planes are grounded. And, there was environmental bounce back, and it was all over the papers. And I think over this period of kind of everybody's been forced to slow down and connect with their local environment and their local area. And, that mindset and that awareness of the impact of flying has led to a lot of people saying, actually, we are gonna try to travel more sustainably as we start to be able to do more travel again.
Yeah, if once they can travel again, they're just going to forget about this period and about the bounce back of nature, or are they actually going to remember that? What do you think?
Well, the research says they're going to remember it. I mean, there's a lot of data out there about people making more sustainable decisions in their lives and wanting to carry that forward. So my bet is, well, some of them will forget about it, but I think a lot of people are going to carry it forward.
I hope they will, yeah. But you never know. People seem to forget quite easily what happened in the past. So I just hope that they think, well, this is actually a good way to move forward, and we should really think about clean air. Seeing mountains in far away and things like that. I hope that goes on, but you never know.
We only need them to remember for a very short time, actually, because as long as they try one trip like this,
that's true.
the chances are they're going to just be hooked, and they're going to want to do more of them regardless.
Absolutely, that's a very positive outlook as well, I must say. A lot of articles in the newspapers, not only from the UK and Ireland, but also on the other side of the globe as well, where they tend to be less sustainable normally. One here from Globe and Mail talking about what's next for the travel industry post-coronavirus, talking about slow travel as well. And they say that, I don't know if you agree with this, but they say that tourism before COVID was an industry marked by gluttony.
I think that's a bit strong, don't you?
So do I. But they also say that travel should be viewed as a privilege, not as a hobby.
I think that it depends how you think about your travel, right? I think that traveling a lot is wonderful if you can do it, and I think increasingly more people can do it. Especially if you can do it in a way that is grounded and is sustainable. And I think that there are a lot of sort of increasing flexible working practices, and remote working is suddenly possible in a way that has never been before. And we're starting to find that people are able to consider more exploring sorts of holidays where we're sometimes doing hybrid trips for people where they want to have some holiday, but they actually also want to stay somewhere that's got some great Wi-Fi and then get some work done in a beautiful landscape with amazing walks on their doorstep, and then just kind of go and really get out there over the weekend. And that might be a multi-week sort of trip. So I think that it's, in a way, we're getting to a world where that sort of thing is possible, and it's possible to be a little bit more nomadic about the way that you travel, and I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Is that increasing, that working away from home?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's likely to continue to do so, isn't it? As people are more flexible. I think that we've all had a lot of challenges, but we've learned some skills that we didn't know we had in us around flexible working and working remotely.
Absolutely. They also say, really, you should really explore your destination where you're going to with a fine-tooth comb. I believe personally that you should stay longer at the destination. I'm not sure how you feel about these things really. I mean, for you it's really about getting a sustainable holiday out to the people, right? And hoping that they really enjoy that. I'm sure that's what you want, right? Am I?
I think that's right. We want a really joyful experience, a joyful journey that allows people to travel through a region, connect with the region, connect with the food, connect with the people, and like you say, like take their time to do that and to get to know a place rather than just parachuting in, doing a holiday and parachuting out again on a kind of surface level. So I think it is about going a little bit deeper.
Okay. Vaccines. So what do you think? Are people going to have a passport for vaccines? And obviously they're talking about flights, which is obviously not applicable here. Do you think that when people take a train or when they take a bus, they need to be vaccinated, or what do you think?
Oh, I don't know that I could predict that yet. I think there'll be something with tests and vaccines, and who knows whether a vaccine will be enough. You might need a test and a vaccine. I probably wouldn't hazard a guess at the moment on what that's going to all net out like.
Fair enough. And staycations, what do you see as a staycation? Someone who stays in their area, or someone who stays in their country, or someone who stays on their continent in Europe? What do you think about staycations? And obviously they say staycations are here to stay, but obviously if they're just going to the village next door, then it's not good for you, right?
Well, I think it's great for us because it's a mindset as much as anything. I think with Byway, we are as much a movement towards slow travel and helping it to become a more mainstream way of life. And I think you can practice that at home and in your local area. And I actually think that's great. We've got a membership.
You got a membership?
We have, So it's not a paid for membership, but the idea is that for really, for people who are kind of in our universe and want to be, more kind of committed to slow travel or more connected to Byway and the mission. We do have a membership where we have slow travel nights in. So we have kind of guest speakers. Anna Hughes actually will be one of them, coming to speak about epic adventures by grounded means. And we also have member holidays that kind of come in a Facebook community as well. So the idea really is just helping each other with the slow ways. So I suppose from that point of view, going to your next door village is lovely.
It's lovely. Great.
And then I guess the other part of that question was on the definition of a staycation. I think it's interesting because I think technically still the definition of a staycation is you stay in your own house. And I would say when we're using staycation now, we don't mean that. We tend to mean you're staying within your country. Or sort of a regional area perhaps, and so I think it's kind of a malleable term that's been given a bit of it's been changed the way that people use staycation more in the last couple of years. I wouldn't probably say that going within your continent, I probably wouldn't class that a staycation yet, but certainly when we talk about if somebody's coming from London up on the Caledonian Sleeper for 10 days in the Highlands with Byway, then we might still call that a staycation, actually.
I would, definitely. Yeah. All right, great. And what do we have here? What the world will look like. But I've asked that already. No one knows what the world is going to look like. But it seems very not so bright for the next month or two. And I would say, and then once people over 50 start getting vaccinated, they will be the first one to travel. I take it, and then it will slowly move down the age groups. Right? What do you reckon?
I think it's interesting. So I think that certainly we're seeing a lot more confidence in travel with people who have sight of a vaccine.
For which month are they booking with you? Are they booking for July, August, end of the year?
We've even had some bookings for April and May.
Really? Yeah.
We have, but I think we're also we have noticed, and we certainly saw a lot of this last year. There are a whole lot of people before there even was a vaccine who, as restrictions allow, were absolutely still going away. And I think that because we're only sending people on off-peak trains and boats,
right,
we're only choosing off-peak, and that means that people aren't going to be crammed up against lots of other people. It's not a commuter train, and there's plenty of space, and actually that has given people quite a lot of confidence that you put on a mask, you get on an off-peak train, you don't see very many people. They're quite empty at the moment anyway.
You off-peak? Does that mean just after 9 o'clock, or does it also mean not in the weekends, or how do you see that?
It depends on the line. So off-peak will vary depending on the line of the train. But yeah, generally it's about avoiding commuters. So it would, generally off-peak trains at the weekend or after 9, 10 o'clock, depending where you are. So it's just kind of avoiding those particular busy times of the day. And that's actually meant that we've sent a whole lot of people well under 50 away last year as restrictions say you can travel, or even if you're going from a tier 2 to a tier 2, that's allowed. And we actually did have a lot of movement of people because it's off-peak and because it's off the beaten track. So because we can help them to go somewhere that hasn't got lots of people in it and that isn't going to be a high contact risk area, and it's remote and it's exciting for long walks on your own. Those sorts of trips seem to be actually going quite well last year.
Right. Well, listening to you actually makes me want to travel again now as well. It's just terrible because we can't go anywhere. Anyway.
Sorry.
Is there anything you would like to say to people that are listening? Any message about sustainability? And also, where can people find you? Of course, that's very important as well.
Yeah, I suppose my message is that if you haven't tried this, come and give it a go. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous way to have a break and a holiday. And it really, it's really, really enjoyable. So I think try it. And if you're going to try it, you can DIY it. It's not easy, but we fully support you to go for that if you've got the time. If you feel like you're time strapped, then absolutely we can kind of make this really easy. So we're on byway.travel is our web address. We're on byway.travel on Instagram as well. So you can find us on various different platforms by searching Byway Travel. And just come and check us out, and we can obviously help you to do this just with a few clicks and lots of help along the way.
Fantastic. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, I must say. Absolutely great. And I hope that a lot of people will think about it and make use of Byway. I think it's really great. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Peter.
So that was a podcast with Kat Jones of Byway Travel. I will put all the links in the show notes, and you can find the latest news on podcast.earth. You have been listening to me, that is Peter de Vries. Thank you very much for doing so. Don't forget to tune in next time. Thank you.